The images you're seeing haven't been altered with special effects, and they don't belong to some distant planet. Every one of them exists right here on Earth, a familiar planet that still hides places that seem to defy the rules of nature. A natural flame burns fiercely behind a rushing waterfall. In the frozen Arctic, streams of turquoise water pour from a massive wall of ice. And glowing auroras dance across the dark night sky. Some of these phenomena have been explained by science. Others still leave questions without complete answers. Right now, we're exploring 30 of the most extraordinary places on Earth, where mysteries still remain and continue to push us to search for answers. And make sure you stay with us until number 10. It might be the place that surprises you most on this journey. Long tracks cut across a dry lake bed, each one ending at a rock. It looks as if someone dragged the rocks across the ground, but there are no other traces around them. This is Racetrack Playa in Death Valley. Some of these rocks weigh around 320 kilograms. A few have traveled more than 450 meters, even though the surface here is almost perfectly flat. For decades, this phenomenon puzzled scientists. After years of research, the most widely accepted explanation is that the rocks can move only when water, ice, and wind come together under the right conditions, allowing them to slide across the lake bed. That combination is extremely rare. It has made Racetrack Playa one of the few places in the world where rocks have actually been observed moving on their own. The Brule River splits into two branches. The eastern branch drops about 15 meters like a normal waterfall. The other plunges directly into a large hole in the rock and disappears. That hole is called Devil's Kettle, located in Minnesota, United States. No one knew where all that water went. Various markers were dropped into the hole, but none helped reveal the route the water was taking. Later measurements showed that the water does return to the river downstream. That ruled out the theory that it disappeared into a massive underground cave system. But exactly how does the water return? And why did none of the test objects ever reappear? bases of hundreds of pine trees curve sharply along the ground. Then their trunks suddenly turn upward and continue growing straight. Almost every tree has the same unusual shape, bending in roughly the same direction. The Crooked Forest lies near the town of Gryfino in Poland. It contains around 400 pine trees planted in the early 1930s. Each trunk begins to curve only about 20 to 50 centimeters above the ground. Several explanations have been proposed. One suggests that people deliberately shaped the trees for timber. Others point to heavy snow or unusual weather conditions. But there is still no conclusive evidence explaining why only this group of trees developed almost identical curves, while trees growing right beside them remained completely normal. From above, it looks like nothing more than a circular pool surrounded by forest. This is Cenote Angelita on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The water remains clear as divers begin descending. At around 27 to 30 meters, a thick white layer gradually appears beneath them. Dead tree trunks rise through the cloudy layer, making the scene look like a forest growing beside an underwater river. Above it is fresh water. Below it is salt water. Hydrogen sulfide collects at the boundary between the two layers, creating a dense cloud. Combined with the submerged tree trunks, it creates the illusion of a river flowing beneath the water. The sight is so unusual that many divers seeing it for the first time find it hard to believe the entire scene exists inside a single flooded sinkhole. A metallic ring echoes across a field of rocks. Strike the boulder beside it, and the sound disappears. Only certain rocks ring like bells. Others sitting right next to them remain completely silent. Located in Pennsylvania, United States, Ringing Rocks Park is filled with diabase boulders formed around 200 million years ago. Thousands of rocks are packed closely together, yet only about 1/3 produce a clear ringing sound when struck. The sound is believed to be connected to the way individual rocks vibrate and to internal stresses within them, rather than any unusual mineral composition. There is still no reliable way to know which rock will ring until someone actually strikes it. A wall of water almost as wide as a football field plunges straight into the canyon below. Mist rises and covers the surrounding cliffs. The waterfall remains grey and murky because it carries huge amounts of sediment from glacial meltwater. This is Dettifoss in northern Iceland. The waterfall is about 44 meters high and nearly 100 meters wide. An average of around 193 cubic meters of water crashes over the edge every second. By discharge, it is considered the most powerful waterfall in Europe. The water originates from the Vatnajökull Glacier and flows through volcanic terrain before reaching the falls. The current carries sediment and rock debris, continuously eroding the bedrock and widening the canyon over time. Those geological forces are still reshaping the canyon today. For more than 4 kilometers, massive standing stones form long rows across the fields. Some rise more than 6 meters high, others weigh dozens of tons. Altogether, more than 3,000 stones were erected here. The Carnac Stones in France were constructed between roughly 4500 and 3300 BC. The stones were arranged in specific patterns, with ancient stone circles and burial mounds scattered among them. The true purpose of this enormous complex remains heavily debated. How Neolithic people transported and raised thousands of massive stones like these also remains one of archaeology's biggest questions. A crack runs almost perfectly straight from top to bottom. The two halves still stand side by side, with no sign that they were ever pushed apart or knocked into the sea. This granite boulder stands about 3 meters tall off the coast of New Zealand's Tasman Bay. The rock is around 120 million years old and has an almost perfectly spherical shape. Tides rise and fall around it every day. Waves constantly strike its base, yet both halves remain in place. Natural fractures in the granite combined with weathering, are considered the most likely explanation for the split. But why the rock separated into two nearly symmetrical halves and has remained so stable for so long still has no single agreed-upon explanation. Across the desert floor appears the shape of a bird with its wings spread wide. Farther away are a monkey, a spider, and hundreds of straight lines cutting across the barren landscape. Each figure is so enormous that its complete shape can only be seen from above. In southern Peru, the Nazca Lines cover nearly 450 square kilometers. The complex includes more than 700 straight lines, around 300 geometric figures, and nearly 70 representations of animals and plants. The Nazca people created them more than 2,000 years ago by removing the darker surface stones to expose the lighter ground underneath. Were they connected to rituals, astronomy, or water sources? Even after a century of research, the true purpose of these geoglyphs remains a mystery. Boulders weighing several tons balance precariously on just a few small points of contact. Some rest on only 3 or 4 smaller stones beneath them, yet remain firmly in place. Scenes like this appear across the summit of Vottovaara in Russia's Karelia region. This area of about 6 square kilometers contains more than 1,000 Sid-like boulders. Between them are deep fractures, small lakes, and numerous twisted or dead trees. Most of the landscape is believed to have formed after the Ice Age through a combination of ancient seismic activity and weathering. But there is still no single agreed-upon explanation for why these unusual boulders are concentrated so densely on this particular mountain. And no one knows how many, if any, were deliberately arranged by prehistoric people. A stone corridor stretches deep into the hillside. On both sides, massive slabs rise higher than a person. Above them, enormous stones form the roof. They have remained in place for more than 5,000 years. These are the Dolmens of Antequera in southern Spain. The complex consists of 3 major megalithic monuments. Menga Dolmen alone is nearly 27.5 meters long. Inside is also a well about 19.5 meters deep, an extremely rare feature among megalithic structures from the same period. The largest stone weighs around 180 tons. Exactly how these massive blocks were quarried, transported, and raised into position is still not fully understood. Menga Dolmen also points directly toward La Peña de los Enamorados instead of aligning with the sun, like many other dolmens in Europe. The reason behind this unusual orientation remains an ongoing subject of research. The doorway is almost as tall as a house. The surrounding surface is flatter and smoother than the natural rock around it. At the center is a small, recessed niche, just large enough for a person to stand inside. But behind it is nothing but solid rock. This structure is known as the Aramu Muru doorway near Lake Titicaca in Peru. The carved facade measures about 7 meters high and nearly 7 meters wide. It was cut directly into a massive sandstone outcrop. Vertical grooves appear on both sides of the recessed doorway, almost as if they were designed to hold some kind of door. Yet no evidence of any structure ever attached there has been found. Who carved this monument? And when was it created? There is still no single, agreed-upon answer. Another question remains just as puzzling. Why does this doorway lead directly into solid rock? Water keeps pouring down. Just behind it, a flame continues to burn inside a small rock cavity. If it goes out, it can be relit because gas from underground continues to escape. Eternal Flame Falls is located in Chestnut Ridge Park in New York, United States. The flame is fueled by methane and other light hydrocarbons leaking through cracks in the rock behind the waterfall. During winter, ice and snow can nearly cover the small cavity where the flame appears. The waterfall may partially freeze as well, but natural gas continues to seep from the fractures below. The source of the flame's fuel has been identified. The remaining mystery lies in the gas flow itself. What allows it to remain stable for so long in an area not considered a major natural gas field is still not fully understood. Long basalt columns are stacked on top of one another. They form massive walls surrounding canals and small islands across the lagoon. No mortar, no metal framework holding them together. Nan Madol was built around the 12th to 13th centuries on the island of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia. complex consists of more than 90 artificial islets connected by a network of canals. Each island served a different purpose, from residential areas and ceremonial sites to the tombs of local rulers. Many of the stones weigh between 5 and 10 tons, while some of the largest are estimated to weigh several dozen tons. The quarries are located several kilometers away from the construction site. That means all of these stones had to be transported across water before being stacked into the walls that still stand today. Exactly how the stones were transported, lifted into position, and organized into an entire complex in the middle of a lagoon remains something archaeologists have yet to fully reconstruct. A thin split runs straight from the top of the rock to the bottom. The edges are so flat, and even that they look as if they were cut by a giant blade. The two halves stand completely separated, each balanced on a small stone pedestal. Naslaa Rock stands in the Tama Desert of Saudi Arabia. Each section rises about 6 meters high and is made of sandstone. Ancient carvings still remain on its surface, some dating back thousands of years, showing that humans were present in this area long ago. Natural fractures, wind, and weathering are considered the main forces behind the rock's unusual shape. Even so, what you see at Naslaa is an almost perfectly straight split, dividing the entire formation, while both halves remain balanced on narrow stone bases. That contrast between what the formation looks like and what geology can currently explain has made Naslaa one of the most debated rock formations in the Arabian Desert. More than 1,000 dome-shaped hills cover the landscape ahead. Different heights, yet the same shape repeats again and again. They stretch across dozens of square kilometers on the island of Bohol in the Philippines. The Chocolate Hills consist of around 1,268 limestone hills spread across more than 50 square kilometers. Most rise between 30 and 50 meters, while the tallest reaches nearly 120 meters. During the rainy season, the entire landscape turns green. In the dry season, the grass turns brown, giving the Chocolate Hills their name. These hills formed from ancient marine limestone. Rain, groundwater, and weathering have gradually eroded the rock over millions of years. That part can be explained by geology. But exactly why those processes created more than 1,000 hills with such remarkably similar shapes concentrated in one area still does not have a complete explanation. Steam blankets the surface of the river. Water constantly churns through the Amazon rainforest. This is the Shanay-Timpishka, a river about 6.4 kilometers long, with many sections remaining between 86 and 94 degrees Celsius. Yet there are no active volcanoes anywhere nearby. Leaves and fallen branches that enter the water are quickly cooked. Small animals that accidentally fall in have little chance of surviving. In many sections, the temperature is high enough to cause burns within seconds of contact, making conditions like these extremely rare for a natural river. Rainwater is believed to seep deep underground, absorb geothermal heat, and then return to the surface through fractures in the rock. But maintaining near boiling temperatures across such a long stretch of river in the middle of the Amazon would require an enormous geothermal system beneath the ground. The full scale of that system, and exactly how it maintains such stable heat over time, has yet to be completely reconstructed. Multiple waterfalls pour from a massive wall of ice at the same time, plunging directly into the sea. There is no cliff behind them, no river flowing above. This phenomenon appears on Austfonna, Europe's largest ice cap, located in Norway's Svalbard archipelago. During summer, meltwater on the surface enters cracks, travels deep inside the ice, and suddenly emerges along the glacier's edge, creating waterfalls that can drop for dozens of meters. These waterfalls appear for only a short period each year. They also reveal that the ice cap is not one solid block, but contains an entire network of constantly changing drainage channels, where the water collects, where it escapes, and when the waterfalls appear. All depend on this hidden system. So far, its complete internal structure has never been directly observed. An experimental rocket veered hundreds of kilometers off course before crashing into the Mexican desert. After the 1970 incident, the area around the impact site quickly became associated with stories of radio signals disappearing, compasses pointing the wrong way, and other strange phenomena. The name La Zona del Silencio became famous soon afterward. The area lies within the Bolson de Mapimi in the Chihuahuan Desert. Stories about radio interference and unusual magnetic activity continued to spread for decades. But when equipment was actually brought in for testing, radios and compasses still worked normally. No permanent signal dead zone has ever been confirmed. Yet the strange stories never disappeared. Today, it is almost impossible to separate La Zona del Silencio from the legends that made it famous in the first place. Beneath the waters off Japan, the seafloor suddenly turns into a series of flat terraces. Stone steps descend into deeper water. Sharp edges and near right angles appear across a single, massive rock formation. The Yonaguni Monument was discovered in 1986 near Yonaguni Island. The main formation is about 150 meters long, more than 25 meters high, and contains multiple levels that resemble giant terraces. The sandstone in this area can naturally fracture along flat plains. Earthquakes and marine erosion have continued shaping the rock over time. But some researchers believe certain surfaces show signs of possible human modification. One structure, two competing explanations, and beneath the waters of Yonaguni, neither has completely ruled out the other. More than 32 meters tall, built entirely from red brick. It looks almost exactly like a giant industrial chimney. Yet inside, there are no traces of soot, suggesting it was ever used that way. The structure has stood at Tanjung Kubong on Labuan Island for more than a century. Locals call it Punil. It was built in the late 1890s when coal mines in the surrounding area were operating at full scale. Thousands of layers of brick form a tower rising 32.5 meters high. A ventilation shaft for the mines once seemed like a logical explanation, but excavations found no tunnel directly beneath it. A furnace chimney, lighthouse, bell tower, and even a communication tower have all been proposed as other possibilities. More than a century later, the structure is still standing. Only the purpose its builders originally intended for it has disappeared from the historical record. From ground level, all you can see are trees and wide moats. You have to rise above them before the full shape appears. A burial mound, stretching nearly half a kilometer, forms a massive keyhole in the middle of Sakai, Japan. Daisenryo Kofun was built in the 5th century and consists of 3 tiers. The amount of earth used to construct it has been estimated at around 1.4 million cubic meters. One estimate suggests that even with 2,000 people working every day, it would have taken more than 15 years to complete. Haniwa figures, paving stones, and other traces from the Kofun period have been found around the exterior, but the closer you get to the center, the less we know. The burial mound is managed as the tomb of Emperor Nintoku, yet its central core has never undergone a full archaeological excavation. That means one of the largest tombs in the world still keeps its most important secrets buried beneath the earth at its center. Almost the entire boulder extends beyond the rock, supporting it underneath. The contact point covers only about half a square meter. Yet the nearly 7-meter-long boulder sits so firmly in place that people cannot push it enough to make it move. The name Kummakivi means strange stone in Finnish. For around 11,500 years, the boulder has remained in the same position in the forests of Rukolahti. No human hands placed it there. The evidence preserved in the surrounding bedrock takes the story all the way back to the end of the Ice Age. A glacier once carried this enormous boulder with it. When the ice melted, the rock was left behind on a curved surface, polished smooth by the glacier. Its center of gravity landed just right over the tiny contact point below. If its final position had been even slightly different, Kummakivi might have become just another boulder lying on the ground. Instead, it has remained balanced in this almost impossible position for thousands of years. A massive circular mound rises from the fields of Ireland, nearly 85 meters across. White stone forms an arc around the front. Huge blocks surround the base, and only one narrow entrance leads inside. This is Newgrange, built around 3200 BC. The monument is nearly 85 meters wide and about 13 meters high. Beyond the entrance a stone passage runs almost 19 meters into a chamber near the center of the mound. Above the doorway is a small opening positioned with remarkable precision. On mornings around the winter solstice, the rising sun shines directly through it. A beam of light travels along the passage before reaching the chamber deep inside. That alignment has continued to work for more than 5,000 years. Spirals and other carvings on the stones have survived from the same period. The builders of Newgrange left behind both the monument and a moment of sunlight they calculated with extraordinary precision. Only the true meaning of the rituals and symbols has been lost to time. A patch of deep blue water opens up right beside a white sandy beach. Around it, the sea is shallow and turquoise, but right in the middle, the sea floor suddenly disappears into an almost vertical hole. Dean's Blue Hole is located on Long Island in the Bahamas. The opening is about 25 to 35 meters wide, just a few meters below the surface. The rock walls expand into a much larger chamber. Its deepest measured point is around 202 meters. Light fades rapidly as you descend. Limestone walls surround a dark column of water extending deep toward the bottom. Its depth and relatively sheltered conditions have made it a famous destination in the free-diving world. Dean's Blue Hole is the remains of a limestone system that formed when sea levels were lower than they are today. Seawater later flooded and submerged the entire structure. So what looks like a dark circle in shallow water is actually just the entrance to an enormous space hidden far below. The rock surface slopes sharply downward. Sitting directly on it is a massive granite boulder, almost perfectly round. Most of the rock extends beyond its point of support. At first glance, it looks like it could roll downhill at any moment. This is Krishna's Butterball in Mamallapuram, southern India. It stands about 6 meters high and nearly 5 meters wide. Its weight is estimated at around 250 tons. People can still walk directly beneath it, while the boulder itself has remained in the same position for centuries. Its rounded surface was shaped by the long-term weathering of granite. The steep slope makes the balance look almost impossible, but the boulder's center of gravity still falls over the supporting rock beneath it. The contact area is small, yet it is enough to keep hundreds of tons of granite completely still. It looks like the boulder is defying gravity. In reality, gravity is exactly what keeps it there. The cave ceiling is covered with formations hanging down from above. Below, stone columns rise from the floor. In some places, the two ends have already joined, creating massive pillars stretching from floor to ceiling. The water beneath them reflects the entire scene. Reed Flute Cave in China extends for about 240 meters. Water has seeped through the limestone over long periods of time. Layer after layer of minerals was deposited. The stalactites and stalagmites grew little by little. That is how the formations visible today were created. But people knew about this cave long before it became a tourist attraction. More than 70 ink inscriptions still remain on the rock walls. Some date back to the Tang dynasty. That means more than 1,000 years ago, people were already entering this darkness and leaving traces behind. The rock formations continue to change, but the writing on the cave walls has turned this place into a record stretching across centuries. When the tide retreats from Kohokohe Beach, massive stone spheres gradually emerge from the sand. Some remain almost perfectly intact. Others have split open, revealing layers of mineral veins inside. The largest are more than 2 meters across and weigh several tons. The Moeraki Boulders in New Zealand began forming millions of years ago when they were still buried deep within the mud of an ancient sea floor. Minerals accumulated around small cores. The surrounding sediment gradually cemented together. Over time, they developed into nearly spherical formations. Today, waves and weather continuously erode the coastal cliffs. The softer material is gradually washed away. Some boulders remain trapped inside the cliffs, while others now lie completely exposed on the beach. And as the coastline continues to retreat, more Moeraki boulders will slowly emerge. Bands of green light stretch across the night sky. They curve, split into multiple layers, then change shape within seconds. At times, the entire horizon seems to disappear behind a massive curtain of light. In northern Norway, this spectacle appears frequently during the dark nights of aurora season. Most of the light forms at altitudes ranging from around 100 to several hundred kilometers above the ground. Green is usually the dominant color. Red, purple, and blue can appear as conditions change. The energy behind it begins with the sun. Charged particles travel toward Earth and are guided toward the polar regions by the planet's magnetic field. When they collide with gases in the upper atmosphere, those gases begin to glow. But the shape and intensity of the aurora can change continuously within just a few minutes. A band of light can disappear, split into multiple branches, or spread across another part of the sky. That makes it extremely difficult to predict exactly what shape the aurora will take at any specific moment. Thousands of circles cover the dry grasslands. Almost nothing grows inside them. Around the edges, a distinct ring of grass remains. The pattern repeats again and again across vast areas of the Namib Desert. They are known as fairy circles. Most are several meters wide. Some exceed 10 meters. Individual circles can survive for years before disappearing, while new ones form in different locations. Below the surface, sand termites may remove vegetation and change how water is stored in the soil. Above ground, grasses also compete for extremely limited moisture and can organize themselves into regular patterns. Both mechanisms are supported by significant evidence. But when the entire network is viewed from above, exactly which process determines the shape and location of each individual circle remains a subject of debate. The farther we travel through places like these, the more the world reminds us how much remains beyond our understanding. Some have slowly revealed their origins. Others still hold questions that have survived for hundreds, even thousands of years. And those unanswered questions are exactly what keep pushing us to explore. Of the 30 places we just explored, which one was hardest to believe actually exists? Share your pick in the comments below. If you enjoy journeys like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to keep exploring more extraordinary places around the world with us.